Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning Blog. My name is Melissa Galasso and I'm excited to talk about something I've wanted to talk about for a couple of weeks now, but we had a lot of things that were more pressing that had tighter deadlines, and so we have finally gotten around to talking about the 2021 FASB Agenda Consultation Report. We did talk about the Agenda Consultation ITC back in 2021, and they have now issued the report based on that. And so in December of 2020, the new chair, which was Richard Jones, decided he wanted to do an invitation to comment around what the FASB should be focusing their attention on. And so in early parts of 2021, they met with various standard setters. They met with FASAC and NAC and PCC and SBAC and all of their different advisory councils to get an understanding of what we recommended, right, for what should be on the agenda for the FASB. After that, they took all that information and they turned it into an invitation to comment. That invitation to comment was issued in June of 2021. Comments were due September 22nd of 2021. And so it was a pretty decent response rate, about 522 responses that came in. Some of them were very narrow in scope, that they were specifically addressing only one particular item, sort of like a form type letter. And then some were a little bit more broad in that respect. And so they put it out there and then they took the feedback. They went through all of the information. They looked at what investors were asking for and preparers were looking for, and other users to determine, okay, well, how is this going to actually impact? Once they finished all of the discussions, they issued the 2021 FASB Agenda Consultation Report back in June of 2022. So just a couple weeks ago, they did issue this report. And so as you can see here, this was sort of the timeline. They started the Agenda Consultation Project. They went through and did their initial discussions. Then they provided that feedback. They put it out for comment. Comments were then due. And then in the first half of 2022, they issued the final version. As I mentioned, 522 responses to the ITC. 445 of them, however, were specifically addressing just the digital assets. And again, they were very much focused on a narrow scope in that scenario. But there were 77 others that really looked at the ITC more broadly. And that was based on practitioners, preparers, investors, trade groups, and then what we call others, which are academics, state societies, etc. And so as you can see, it was pretty well-rounded. The largest is in the investor, about almost a third came from investors, but there's a good number of preparers and practitioners in here as well. And when we look at what are the top priorities, you can kind of see them by type, where we look at things like digital assets, high priority, because again, there's no existing accounting. Most have a lot of questions around how to treat this as it is a non-financial asset, that we're sure of, but the treatment, the fair value considerations there. ESG related items, we've talked about this on the blog a couple of times, and so that has obviously been one of the key areas. And then disaggregation of financial reporting entities. In particular, investors, you can see that disaggregation really is their focus. They really want more information about how some of these numbers are. And when you're totaling things on the face of the financials, they're not getting the disaggregation that they're looking for. So obviously that was high up there. Also, the statement of cash flows was important for them, but you can also see ESG as well as digital assets as a focus in this scenario. And at the end of the day, all of these ended up either on the technical agenda or on the research agenda. But I wanted to show you this one because I think this is really interesting, where people had a lot of disagreement as to what the value of it is. So as you can see here, the number of people who said, yes, we should focus on this against the number of people who said no. And I love the one specifically for disaggregation of financial reporting information. So for every investor who wants it, there is a preparer who doesn't want to have to provide it. And so you can kind of get a feel for the highest versus lowest priorities in the, it's not necessarily 100% in the same direction. So FASB gets a lot of diverse information that's not always consistent between different user groups. So in terms of the outputs in this scenario, digital assets did make the list for the technical agenda, as did environmental credit programs, part of the ESG look. And then software. Software is becoming more and more problematic because the definitions are changing. Software as a service is really changing how we do business. And so they're going to take a fresh look at that. In addition, quite a few things ended up on the research agenda, exchange traded commodities, more ESG type items, hedging phase 2, the ITC, which has already come out for government grants, and whether we should consider IAS 20 as the basis for a new set of GAAP for FASB in the United States, consolidation for business entities, KPIs for business entities, and the statement of cash flow. So as you can see here, things have already been moving around. In fact, some of these are already moving from the research phase into the agenda for the technical agenda. But there were some things that came out of this that they said maybe we're not going to focus on anymore. Balance sheet classification, the gift that keeps on giving, that has gone through multiple rounds of exposure draft. There's just too much diversity there. So they decided to take that one off. The reorganization of the codification guidance, instead they're going to look at maybe a more holistic approach to the consolidation, but not specifically focus on reorganizing the COD in that area. So they're going to focus on consolidation in particular. Debt modifications and distinguishing liabilities from equity, that's actually phase 2 of a prior project. Those were taken off. And then materiality for disclosure. So they decided not to pursue these projects in favor of the other projects that got more attention from both investors and users and preparers as well as practitioners. All right, so that's a wrap on what's going on in the world of the FASB and what we should be expecting down the pike. There's a lot of information in there with some rationale. They actually walk through each of the different areas and why they did or did not include them on the either research agenda or the technical agenda. So it's definitely a good read. I would highly recommend that you take a look at what we expect FASB to working on over the next couple of years. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Genuine Learning blog, and I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.